How to create wealth in property in 2024. Today we're very lucky to be joined by Jamie Pritchard from Glenhawk. Jamie's going to talk you through where the bridging finance opportunities are in 2024, which can help an investor create some wealth. Jamie, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Gindy.
Can you just introduce yourself to the audience, where you're from, and a bit about the lender that you work for, please?
Absolutely. So my name's Jamie Pritchard. I'm the sales director at Glenhawk. Glenhawk is a bridging finance company that helps investors and people buy property, through bridging finance. So bridging finance is up to a 24-month product, and it helps you buy, which we'll lend on, commercial, residential, HMOs, even your regulated house, i.e. the one that you live in, if you need to buy that sort of at auctions. But I'm sure we can talk about all the different ways that we can help you. So yeah, Glenhawk's been in business for 5 years, and 3 of them we've won Bridging Lender of the Year as well. So really good business.
Fantastic. So Jamie, where do you feel as though the bridging opportunities are in 2024 for the investors?
Yeah, there's lots of opportunities out there, and I think it all comes down to, I always say, what's your business model? So there's loads of different types of properties. What's your business model going forward? I think it's about wealth creation, as you've called it, but it's also about longevity and what you want to do. So whether that is flipping properties, maybe buying a property that's a little bit run down that you're going to do some work to, that then you're going to flip on and sell. There's great opportunities in that. Maybe it's actually because rentals are hitting where they are, but actually the stress tests out there, buy-to-lets, meaning that people need more deposits, the affordability of them. So what you're finding is people are looking for rental creation. What I mean by that is maybe having a residential that you can flip into a HMO. So HMOs, you can have up to 6 people, if not more, living in those properties as well. So more rent, more yield creation. We've seen a lot of empty commercial properties that can be converted. Whether that's repurposing, so different businesses. We've seen through COVID and probably before COVID, the high street is changing. So there's a lot of opportunity to buy something that's maybe vacant, do it up, switch that into residential. And the list goes on from there, really. Okay,
brilliant. So I just want to touch on a couple of things that you just mentioned there. So firstly, for the first time investor out there, they've seen a house, they want to look to convert it to a house of multiple occupancy. Could you tell the audience how Glenhawk can potentially help with that sort of transaction?
Yeah, so I would always say, first of all, Glenhawk can help you with that, but first of all, they need to have that business plan. So have they spoken to a tax consultant? Have they spoken to a good broker like yourselves that creates?
Thank you.
And are they able, because the tax consultant's really good because of the structure of ownership. Get that right at the start, don't actually change it later on, because that could become more expensive. After that, what they can be looking at is really having, I always call it reverse engineering. So understanding how much deposit you got, understand where you're going to be searching for those properties as well, whether it be auction, getting in with a good estate agent and knowing that. And if they're going to be, because you said about converting, didn't you?
Yes.
And developing those properties, they really need to understand the costs.
Okay.
Everything. Fresh air is costing more these days, do you know what I mean? And everything's costing more. Everyone's shopping, but also price of materials are as well. So by picking up a property, know how much you can go for, know how much you can actually put down for. If you're going to auction, don't put your hand up if it's too much, or if you don't think you're getting a good deal. Plus also have mapped out with what's called a schedule of works, and what those costs are going to be. Know how long it's going to be to do those works as well is really important. And know what your exit route is of finance. So I won't let anybody get on a bridge unless I know 1 or 2, a contingent exit of how they can go off that. Because bridging doesn't have to be expensive. The old adage is that bridging's expensive. Well, it's not if you're creating wealth.
Agree.
So it's a considered business cost. But it can get expensive if you haven't planned the works, the costs, and you overrun. That's where the real problems happen. So the best thing they can do about wanting to get a developer and get onto bridging is A, talk to yourselves. Get a good broker around you, get a good tax consultant, because you have our ear and you understand it, we understand it. They don't even have to understand it that much. They just need to understand that there is an opportunity there.
Perfect. So planning is so important. Tax advice, yes, it's a must. Speak to a good brokerage like ourselves is a must as well. So then when you've spoken to your brokerage, if we were to place you with Glenhawk, so just talk me through how it would work in terms of a conversion facility with Glenhawk, for example. So I've seen a house that I want to buy. The opportunity is there for me to then look at a conversion. So how would Glenhawk structure that sort of finance?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we would look at, we would lend on a residential asset. So, let's just all picture a terrace property that, is just at the moment what we call C3 use class. So normal residential. And then you want to convert that to HMO. First of all, you would, and the customer would, check whether it's in an Article 4 area.
Okay. For the audience, can you just tell the audience what Article 4 means, please?
Yeah, of course. So, the technicalities of that is that sometimes you can, if you wanted to, say, do and buy a big shopping centre and then convert it into something else, you need planning. You need to go to the council and planning. But there is some rules where you don't need the planning, i.e. the red tape that comes around it. And that's called permitted development rights. So I can change something from a residential into a HMO without planning. And that comes under permitted development. However, the councils bite back. Whether there's too many HMOs in an area, there's multiple ones. London's got quite a few boroughs with it, Southampton, Salford, the list goes on about those areas. And what Article 4 means is that you can't buy that residential in that area and just convert it to a HMO without planning. So doing that check early is, really proper what they need to be doing on that. So back to your question, how we would do it. So let's just say it is in a permitted development area that you can do. 75% that we'll allow you to day one. So that's 75% of what the market value of that property is.
Okay.
This is a really important point because if you were to do a normal buy-to-let, most of the lenders out there will always lend off the market value of that property. It's worth 500,000. You're buying it for 500,000. That's what it's worth. Some lenders will lend only off the 180-day or 90-day value. And what that means, Gindy, is that that's what the 90-day value is if we had to sell it within 90 days.
Okay.
So
quick sale.
You're talking about quick sale. It's going to be 20% drop difference, maybe. It's a different deal. So knowing that part, we'll lend a 75% day one. However, what we'll also ask you and your customers, what is going to be the end value of that property?
So that's the gross development value.
GDV, yeah. So that's the GDV on that. So let's say in that example I was using 500,000, but after you've done some works, it's going to be worth 750,000. How much of those works going to be next? Let's say £100,000. We would lend you the £100,000 as well in arrears. So what that means is it's drawn down. Benefits of that is you don't have it all day one because you'd be paying more interest on it. And you have it when you need it for the works, i.e. you're in arrears because you've done the works. Maybe it's two £50,000 increments, You do the works, then you get your 50,000. You pay interest only from that day, which is good. Then you come back, do some more work, and then you do 50,000 again, in that example, so drawn down. The other thing with those acronyms, so acronym tennis, is that it's LTGDV, so the loan to gross development value. So we'll look at up to 75% of that value as well. So the process, easy. You would, you need your legal team around it. You need my underwriting. It's a very quick process. Bridging should be quick, so bridging should be quick. So it's, it's good in that sense. Using it with the legals and everything like that to just consider what the exit route would be again. That exit's really important. Knowing if you're going to have a buy-to-let at the end of it, knowing if you're going to sell the property. Yeah,
brilliant. So there you go. Tip number one on how to create wealth in 2024, looking at refurbishment finance. So buying a property, 75% loan to value on day one, 100% of the refurbishment costs covered, uplifting valuation, allows you the potential then to refinance the property, pay back the original loan, take some profit out, repeat the cycle again, or potentially sell the property on for a profit. Secondly, Jamie, you mentioned there, we talked about commercial developments. Commercial developments to resi, fairly high at the moment. Why is that? I'm seeing quite a lot of investors myself currently looking at commercial to resi. I'm assuming that yourself at Glenhawk, you're seeing that as well. Why is that?
We are because they're not building any more land in Britain. So, and it's hard to actually get sometimes land and the red tape of actually doing development and build that out of the ground. So if there's a lot of empty stock out there, let's call it, and there is, we've all walked down a high street and seen those empty shops and the maybe more pound shops than there used to be, and there's some offices. Guess what? Loads of us are working from home now. We don't need as bigger offices. All those buildings are ready-made to be repurposed. So that's why you're seeing a lot of people turn. Argos is a good example. All those storage areas that they now do it in the Sainsbury's or wherever in the supermarket they're in, that's a lot of space that can be converted into flats. So that is exactly what the opportunity is in existence. We're seeing a lot of that.
Brilliant. And then with commercial, do you require full planning permission on commercial to convert to residential? Is there examples of where you may not need that at all?
Yeah, there's some examples. So we talked earlier about permitted development rights and the different areas. Not to bore you and not to bore you or anybody in the audience about it, but actually use classes is quite an old system, and everything was classed as different letters and different things. Won't bore you with that part. However, it got simplified a few years ago where shops, cafes, all different things that you'd think are on the high street and different commercial usages, were all classed as a Class E. What that actually means is that you can actually change it from that shop into nursery without planning. So that's permitted development. What they've then gone and done, the government, so they do some good things. The government then actually opened up the permitted development rights.
I'd say bad government.
Permitted development rights, what they will do is allow you to convert a shop into a house and house dwellings. So the bits upstairs, they can convert those into them. However, there are rules. So it's not just open season, you can do it without planning. You do still need 56 days, and that's called prior approval that you need to go for. But as long as you're hitting the markers and it's not going to be kicked out for that, it's good and it's timely.
And that's one way of avoiding the full planning process, because God, how long's a piece of string? Full planning process can take, they say 12, 13 weeks, but it could be double that. It could be triple that. So having permitted development whereby you can start work on the 57th day, it's essentially good for the potential borrower or the investor. So another way you can create wealth in 2024. In the autumn statement, Jeremy Hunt talked about a new consultation whereby you can convert a house into 2 flats. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's good, isn't it? It's good for investors. So, I'm in a business that's trying to help investors grow, develop their business. And this comes down to, again, planning versus permitted development. So if you have the choice of one and you can do it under permitted developments, less red tape, you can actually turn the dwellings into one. It's really good because guess what? There's not enough homes out there. The government have never hit their 300,000 a year target that they wanted to hit. And so you can have a property which can be converted into 2 flats. For an investor, that's brilliant, because if you're buying a property that's worth £1 million in London, not that big a property probably in London, but £1 million, and you can convert that into 2 flats, well, that's excellent. Guess what? They're not going to be worth 500 grand each. They're probably worth 650 each. So you're creating wealth straight away. Do you sell them? Do you put them into buy to let? There is cons to it, because the council will tell you what cons there are to them, and they may bring in these Article 4, but they'll have to take 12 months to even bring in one of those as well. So when this comes in, over the next 12 months after that, it's open season. It's really good for investors to build up and create wealth.
There you go. Another area where you can potentially create wealth in 2024, but not forgetting also, not only do you have 2 dwellings, if you're keeping them, you have 2 dwellings generating 2 incomes. As opposed to 1.
More yield.
Brilliant. Jamie, we found this so valuable so far. 2 more questions for you. What tips would you give to the first-time investor looking at potentially taking out bridging finance?
Good broker around you. So you need a really good broker around you to really help out, because they'll help you around the myriad of lenders out there. Of course, you should be using Glenhawk, but sometimes it may be a different lender that you can use and utilise for that way. Your broker won't be able to give you tax advice, so you need a tax consultant, and that's really important because it's the structure of ownership that you buy in. Why is that important? Because personal name, you could get taxed differently to limited companies. You could get taxed differently than limited companies in that as well. So I'm not saying which one of those is right, by the way.
Yeah, of course, get tax advice.
And then it all comes down to reverse engineering it. As I keep on saying, it's reverse engineering it, knowing what your actually end goal is backwards. What types of properties are you looking to do? Is it holiday lets? Is it HMOs? Really good one for 2024. Holiday lets, again, it's a good market. So is it that? Is it commercial properties? Do you want to rent them out to businesses? Knowing that type of asset you want to go for will really help you. And then that goes right back to the start. The finance is the easy part.
Yeah, exactly. I'd agree. Make sure you do your research before you start on your property journey. So important to do so, and it will save you a lot of money going forwards. And final question to you, Jamie, what is the biggest benefit of using Glenhawk to arrange your finance?
Well, we get deals done. So we write deals, we understand it. We actually understand it right from the beginning as well. So we're not just giving you terms and then change it later on. So you'll know what the rate will be. You'll know what the deal looks like. And we've got an expert team that have been in bridging finance for so long that understand that deal and work with. So that's why we're rated, the best lender 3 times in a row, first lender that's done it.
Perfect. So transparency is very, very key in bridging finance. And there you see Glenhawk, very, very transparent. So there you go, some fantastic tips on how you can create wealth in 2024. I'd like to say a massive thank you to Jamie for joining us today. Some fantastic takeaways there for our audience. Jamie, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.